the end of the day, it's about conversions, right?
Nowadays with AI overview, you really have to make sure your technical SEO is everything is checked.
Like we've always put a lot of emphasis into content marketing, into SEO, because it's really at the end of the day a way for us to connect with the right audiences, right?
It's always going to be quality over quantity.
What is happening, party people? We are on the Sure Oak podcast with special guest Leona Rajai. Hope I said that right. I love it.
Right.
And Kyle Stevens. They have been, gosh, we've known each other almost close to a year. It's been really fun watching you grow the Elation brand via organic channels. And we're going to get into all of it. But, Kyle, Leona, you work with Elation Health. And if I want to get the backstory right, because I'm passionate about healthcare IT, it's where I got into SaaS myself when I was a chief revenue officer back in the day, but the company started in 2010 by siblings, and they built an EMR. Well, it was like a patient engagement platform for their father. I think that was a cool story. And that was 15 years ago. Leona, you've been there half that time. Anything you fill in the blanks watching that? Cause you've gone from a startup, what you just raised a Series D for $50 million from Ascension Partners. Jonathan Bush of the Bush family's in there, who's a funny story, but those of you don't know. But any white space in there that I missed?
Yeah, well, I can sort of give more color to some of the things that you brought up because, yeah, I've been at the company for a long time, and I think you only stay if you're, really connected to what you're doing. And I feel like Elation is really unique because, as we were mentioning, it was founded by two siblings, and they were actually working in their father's medical practice, and they saw the problem firsthand. They saw these clunky EHR systems that their father had to use and, lose sleep over, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, let's try to build something different. And it ended up being a tool that a lot of other primary care clinicians around the country now have found a lot of benefit from. And so, yeah, I think that to give you the the simple story, but as you mentioned, we've been around for 15 years, and we've really evolved with all of the changes that have been happening in healthcare, from this shift to value-based payment, the way that
Uh-huh.
physicians are getting paid is changing, and also obviously what's happening with AI, which is just huge.
Yeah, 100% of Americans are consumers of healthcare, and please give us technology that doesn't suck, right? So make it easy on the patient and the doctors. I mean, they're busy enough. Why do we have to worry about so much there? So, putting that aside, I want to talk about you two. I love it that organic, earned channels are never done alone. So I love it that we have the dynamic duo on here. Kyle, you are website strategy, and Leona, you are content strategy. This is perfect. And so, do you mind each of you just giving your introductions, just quickly, what maybe a little bit about the ride, how long you've been there, and what your day to day is? Kyle, why don't you start
Yeah.
away?
Yeah. I can go ahead first. So, yep, Kyle Stevens. I'm the website strategy manager at Elation Health, and I've been a web manager across different roles for about 10 years now, a little over 10 years. I've covered all sorts of digital marketing backgrounds, and if it's there, I've been a part of it. But I've really focused in on website management for the past 10 years, from agency side to owning a web analytics company to being back in house for SaaS companies. And I just love everything about SEO and website management in general because it's changing all the time. We're going to have a big discussion about AI overview and AI mode today. And it just continues to be one of those things that just is really exciting for me. So it's just an
And you
industry that I
just
love
did a
being in.
major facelift to your website. I'm sure that was a heavy lift.
Yes.
So that was very good.
Yes.
Congratulations. I'm sorry, but congratulations.
Exactly. It wouldn't be my first one, but after I end some of those, it's always a relief and it's always exciting. We put in all that hard work and the end result's always great. So it was a great.
Leona, tell us about your job. What are you doing on the content side?
Well, I studied journalism and health policy, and I think I found the
You
perfect.
actually use your degree. Well
I
done.
actually figured it out somehow.
That was a German major. So was that right? Or
I
was that a
know. I
minor?
didn't want to bring that up, but yeah,
I mean, languages,
marketing in German.
websites, you find a way. So anyways, I feel like in a way am a journalist trying to tell stories and answer questions that our clinician community has and unpack ideas and make their lives easier ultimately. Obviously, our platform is meant to do that too. And it's very, we have this phrase that you're going to hear throughout the podcast that's called clinical first. It
Yes.
means that
Okay.
they come first, right? So I'm really the sort of journalist that's trying to put that into practice. And my day to day is like a lot of writing, but also a lot of analytics, a lot of working really closely with folks on the team like Kyle. So it's very cross functional team, which is great.
Yeah, I love it. We're all in this together. Sharok is a earned media, agency, and the world's changing under our feet constantly. And so, could you talk about some of the challenges? You operate in the YMYL space, your money, your life. So there's way more scrutiny, not just legally, but by the search engines, by AI itself. We've moved into a zero trust environment that now is quickly verified by AI, whether it's just on what we say on our web pages and what's being said off page. Maybe talk us through just what does this new world look like for you all, and where do you spend your energy?
Yeah, I can kind of kick it off first, but I feel like healthcare and just health tech in general is just a super competitive space. I know every industry is really feeling the effects of AI overviews and AI mode. It almost feels like a transitional period that we've had from other Google algorithm updates, but this just seems quite significant to the sense that SEO is changing to be called something different, like GEO,
Mhm.
AIO. I know we're still trying to figure that out. We're still very early days. And I think healthcare and health tech being such a huge space is going to be like moving a massive cruise ship. It's going to take quite a bit of time to really adapt to that. And I think what Leona brought up earlier with Elation's beginnings in terms of creating like an actual EHR that's super beneficial for doctors. We came into the space and basically gave primary care physicians a technology that would benefit them. And it was kind of a disruptor, essentially. And I think that's what's happening with AI search right now is that the whole industry is disrupting. And I think it's such early days that we're trying to still figure out what's actually going to land. There's a lot of AI slop going on right now. And so I think we're just trying to navigate that together in terms
That's,
of,
that's funny. You're a challenger brand in the EMR space. You're using AI to disrupt, but then while we're trying to get our message out, we're also trying. We're being disruptive. We're being
yeah,
disrupted ourselves, right?
exactly.
That's super interesting. Would you add anything to that, Leona? I mean, like, I love that. What I think AI is doing really well is if you're speaking from a genuine place and you have something very interesting to talk about, this patient first, this clinical first, that probably resonates and that's unique and niche. And that's probably something AI picks up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what's really interesting is I think we're set up in a way for this shift towards more authoritative content
Yeah.
because as you sort of explained, like healthcare is an area where, the research and the information, it can actually change people's lives, right? Like there's human lives that are
Yeah.
in the situation. And so I think that because of the space we're in and because of the unique approach that we have as a company at Elation, where we're actually, we have our hands deep in the problems and
Mhm.
we really work alongside our clinician community. I think it's like positioned us well for a lot of the shifts that we're seeing in terms of, like looking for content that gives more of an emphasis towards expertise because that was always the kind of content that we wanted to produce. So I think even though it's been a disruptor in a way, it kind of organically aligns with our approach to content.
Yeah, okay. I want to put a pin in that. I want to come back to that. But Kyle, in not to give away Elation's trade secrets or what you're doing, but just having gone through a facelift on the website, keeping AI in mind and what the new I mean, Sergey Brin said there's no longer an algorithm. It's just all AI. Right. And we're seeing that with SERPs. Like one day we're number one, the next day we're number 10. Like it used to be that would only happen quarterly. Now it happens weekly. Anything technically on the website advice you would give your fellow website strategists out there in terms of like, hey, how do we bulletproof our websites and future proof them, not just today, but, I would say 5 years, but maybe 5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I think with our biggest, with our website update we just did earlier this year, the biggest focus of why we did it was just because our previous site wasn't adaptable essentially because we knew our company itself was growing significantly, and the old site that we had was originally created 2017. It had a very minor facelift in 2020, and we just needed to build something that would build us up better for the future. And a lot of those things included just the technical back end stuff. So moving away from the content side, the front end side of it for now, we just needed to make sure that everything that we had on our site was connected in some way, and it was easy for search engines and AI algorithms to pick that up and understand the connectivity between, what is our actual solution offerings versus who we serve versus who our audience is, things like that. So we added, a lot more hierarchy to our site architecture that we just didn't have for our site previously. And that was kind of the biggest thing. And we also did a branding fresh update as well and add a lot more internal linking and just made it a lot easier for search engines to crawl our site and understand the content and how it's connected to everything.
Oh, that's super helpful. Okay, so shifting back, either of you probably could talk about this ad nauseum, but using AI in the content creation process, do you mind? How do you use it? Like it, dislike it? What's the for all of us content creators out here? What's the proper way to use it? I don't want to say correctly, but genuinely.
Yeah. That's a did you wanna say anything, Kyle, or should I jump in?
No, yeah, go for it.
Well, I feel like there's in the beginning of using any new tool, there's always like a trial and error process, right? Like in the beginning, I feel like I was like kind of AI phobic. I was like, no, 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 like let me just do my job. And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, I'm just gonna use AI for everything. And I feel like now actually one of our colleagues like kind of used this metaphor and it really helped the logic sort of click for me is like how can you use AI to be your intern, right? Because the idea is not to replace all of the 10 years of expertise that I have. It's almost impossible, but I do feel like it's, sort of my little sidekick over here that's making my
Very
life
cool.
easier for a lot of different aspects of like doing the research, the ideation, the brainstorming, structuring the content, optimizing the content. It's stuff that I've always had to do, but it definitely makes my job a lot easier when it comes to doing a lot of those things. So that's sort of been my approach, and I think it's been nice finding that happy medium.
I like that. Tell me the analogy again. What would you call it?
That AI is your intern. Like think
Your
of it as
intern.
it's not, it's not someone who has like the same brain and experience, they're someone who can definitely help you out, but they're not going to replace you. And I had a moment where I was like, okay, this is just gonna do everything the way that I write, and that's really
Mhm.
not the case.
Leonard and I talk about this just when we collaborate all the time too is, we use SEMrush and all their AI tools and other AI tools in the back end. But we have to keep reminding ourselves to use our own brains. And, Leona has 8+ years of experience of being at Elation creating content. I have, whatever, 10 years experience. We both have vast backgrounds. So you have to, when AI comes out, I think there's a lot of hype and a lot of hysteria that comes out that it's going to it's going to be really helpful for people who have already vast experience, but it's not going to replace. It's really just going to increase productivity. I think that's it's kind of not really a scare tactic, but I think in terms of the ability of what AI can do, I think it's limitless. But in terms of like current day and how we can use it, I think it's only going to help our jobs. And so it is, you have to just remember like AI can help in certain aspects, but you still yourself have a lot of experience and understand if something's actually right because there's just a lot of AI slop out there that we still need to get through.
AI slop. Yeah, that is. Have you seen? I get pitched these once a day in email where they'll show me the 1,000 blogs they wrote in 48 hours for their client and purporting very, very high, traffic spikes. But like to me, you're just it's like anything in SEO. There's a hack and then everybody just like just spams it. And then it just becomes, it's transparent that it's a hack. And then obviously the technology catches up and evens out the playing field. We're moving much more towards is the content we're going to get into eat, but is the content does it have eat, but is it unique enough? And are you going to stand out from a brand mention point of view? It used to be the Holy Grail was number one on the SERP. Now the Holy Grail is can I even get the AI to mention me? So I don't know. Kyle, did you have maybe a 2 cents on like what do you think of like these mass writing? Like, does that help you at all?
I think it's
Is it still
important.
is it still quantity in the SEO world? I mean, that was something Google did a
Yeah.
really good job doing. I don't know if, AI is up there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of tactics that are still in play for SEO. One of them is obviously pumping out quality content, but it's always going to be quality over quantity. And as I mentioned earlier, that just healthcare and health tech in general is just super competitive. And for Elation ourselves, like in the grand scheme of things, we're a pretty small site, and we're competing with large, Harvard and Princeton and Stanford and all these like medical libraries that we're trying to get thought leadership out there. And I think the most successful thing that we've done recently in terms of like the website redesign and rebuild, we've had immediate success that we've seen out of that. But in terms of like AI overviews and getting ranked for that is just having that credibility and authority that Leona was talking about earlier.
Uh-huh.
And we can talk about it, later on, but just to briefly bring it up, we started adding some author bios to our blogs, and we are very lucky to have an in-house physician that is on our executive team, where we have this subject matter expert who is used to working in EHR. She advises on our team of like what is important for doctors in primary care. We also have her writing thought leadership articles. And so crediting someone who is a medically trained and still practicing physician has really helped give a lot of credibility to our blog posts where we talk about some of these things, what is the difference between different payment models and why our EHR is better for certain specialties than others and things like that. So I think that's been extremely helpful, and just making sure that all of our content is links back to or gets links from those other partner syndication sites that are also credible as well. So
You're nodding your head, Leona. You got something to add to that?
No, yeah. I mean, I think this whole debate about like quantity versus quality is what I wanted to talk about because I think that it's kind of been like an ongoing debate even before all the shifts with AI. And I feel like the synthesis for me is like we want to increase our capacity or the quantity of high quality content that we're producing always. I think that there are like some companies that emphasize like, they're almost like content farms. Like they're just putting out like tons sort of like you were mentioning, right? And I think that the same way that we think about our product, like I was saying, like that makes us different than I think a lot of the other EHR companies or healthcare companies in our space of like, creating something that actually is designed around the needs of
Mhm.
the clinician. Like we want our content to be the same. And I think the search engines are smart enough to like notice when they're not, when
Yeah.
it's, just content in the air. So I feel like, yeah, that's definitely the way that I think about like quantity versus quality.
Gotcha.
yeah, we have
Kyle,
it.
back to you. You mentioned some. Oh, go. You gonna say something on the other topic?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Leona said. We actually have like a real world example of this recently, where we had a historical blog post that was ranking for the past year. It was by far our best blog post. It was about value-based payments and fee-for-service payments. And there was a lot of search following around it. We had a blog post that was ranking very well for it. All of a sudden recently, it was completely tanking. Impressions were still very good. It was still showing up, but obviously clicks, that decoupling that's been happening where CTR is going really far down and we're trying to figure out, and ranking was actually, overall ranking was going down. We looked up to see what was ranking in place of it. And it was some very small site that seemed almost spammy, and it would replace it in AI overviews. And it was very much structured exactly what our content was.
Uh,
And we looked in SEMrush, did some competitor research, and they clearly were like a link farming website that the AI mode algorithm was preferring. And this is going to be the third time I'm mentioning AI slop, but again, this is another example of, I think we're in such the early days of AI and AI mode in general that it's still trying to figure itself out. It's still trying to weed out like what is actually reputable and authoritative. And I think it's just going to take time. It's still same as like early days of SEO where PageRank and as you mentioned earlier, that someone just tries to nail down the same thing and tries to copycat it and Google awards it. But over time, it's going to eventually, hopefully, dwindle itself out.
yeah. There's a couple of other changes. I'd love your take on what is just the what Google started to de-emphasize were lists or listicles, I guess what we call them in the industry, and now they're back in full force because who doesn't love a, best SEO agency? When I type that in and like then all these lists come up, and what we notice is our competitors were making their own lists, putting 10, but like, and they were number one, and AI was referencing that as a source article, as a backlink, and you're just like that. I
Yeah.
thought we were past that. Now we're going back to 2000. Like that's very old SEO, and so it'll figure it out. I'm assuming, but like focusing on these fundamentals. The other is how much Reddit and social media is now playing into. Like as SEO professionals now, we're more worried about brand. We're more worried about authenticity. We're more like, is this a cool article? Is it because you used to write just for the algorithm. Now, like, I'm clearly writing for a human because that's what the algorithm is preferring, right? Is a human voice, something the human would like. Funny concept, but like any comment about like how social media now is affecting our industry as organic content writers?
It does seem like, especially Reddit. I mean, Reddit obviously has like huge domain authority and they've been around forever. It's a melting pot for people with opinions. And I think it's still going to obviously be preferred as a preferred source. Yeah, there's not really, it's hard to predict the future, with some of these things. And I think it's going to continue to be influential. But also Reddit, it's similar in the way of like Wikipedia ranks really well on SERPs and always has. But previously, that was not generally, when I was growing up in school, it wasn't generally like a source that we could reference because it was essentially open source. It was
Absolutely.
anyone could add fluff in there, and you never know if it could be actually true or not. So I think social media was like that. I think we've gone past that in terms of like quality, and I think it's actually becoming preferred these days. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Leona, on that. Leona's way has been more involved with our social media previously back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I've
love to hear your
dabbled.
thoughts.
But I think what's interesting, I guess there's this grand old debate about whether social media is like changing our brains and like what kind of content and how much patience we have to consume and to read. And I think that's partially true, and maybe that's part of the reason why the listicles are coming back, because we're, just used to churning or just consuming like tons and tons of short pieces of content. But I also think that on the flip side of it, like when we do read something longer, it's kind of like refreshing, right? That
Yeah.
actually like captures our attention. So I don't think like the art of, traditional content is dead. I think we're just going to see like a much broader mix, and sort of like how I was saying, I don't have a crystal ball either. Like there could be things underway that we're not even thinking of. I think that yeah, it's not necessarily, I think we're just gonna see like a mix of a lot of different kinds of content and the need to like adapt to that environment for sure. And
Yeah,
we're
I think
definitely doing more videos and trying to respond to that for sure.
100% because the LLMs can read video and the transcript.
Yep.
So obviously that's a perfect medium. But I think what you are doing really smartly with the author pages, with setting up the we are value added members to this community. I think people like, well, I got to be on Reddit. Well, fine, but you can do the same thing on LinkedIn. You're just adding, you're finding your tribe and you're communicating into that tribe. Yes, there's lots of different channels. Reddit, if you're uncomfortable on Reddit, there's not a subreddit for you. That's totally fine. Like find where that tribe lives. Eventually, that's how I feel like you future proof yourself. Kyle, you were mentioning what tools you use. I would love to hear a little bit more on that because personally, I struggle. I mean, SEMrush has some tools, Ahrefs has some tools. They won't let you export right now. I mean, I'm sure they'll get there, but like we're having a lot of problems as an agency finding the right tools to measure AI. And then also the loss of clicks in a zero click environment. What are the KPIs when you start thinking about, okay, I'm looking to start measuring, I have to prove myself to my chief marketing officer. I have to show value. What are those things you're looking at? What tools are you looking at? Do you mind walking me through what your tech stack looks like in that way?
Yeah, for sure. It's a mix. It's not so black and white because historically, like I've preferred first party data over everything. So using Google Analytics, GA4, Google Search Console, those types of things. What's made it really frustrating is that with all these changes in the algorithm, I think Google's been slowly rolling out or delaying a lot of their like beta releases in terms of analytics. So when they said that they're going to release an actual report on how often you were in AI overviews, I still have yet to see that. I'm not
I
sure if you
haven't
have
either.
clients
No.
that have seen that yet, but they announced that I
Preach,
think back in March or April. Now we're
preach.
in September, about 3 or 4 months later. So we kind of have to rely on those third-party platforms that are releasing tools faster than Google can actually pump out. I still take a lot of that with a grain of salt, but it's all we have, to actually look at. So SEMrush, yeah, we've actually relied on that pretty significantly, and it's actually been, we have a really good partner or an account manager for us that has, it does have AI overview tools there, and that's what we've relied on in terms of what we're actually showing up for, um, and what our competitors are showing up for too. That's the kind of the biggest thing that we use it for, is for competitor research as well. Anyway, so I feel like with that decoupling of impressions increasing, we're up 100% year over year in terms of impressions, which is great. And, when you report that, that's always a good sign. But when your CTR is half of what it was, is that good? Like, you know what I mean? It's you really have to think about what your new goals are. If the if the whole landscape of where you're getting traffic from is changing, then you're going to have to adapt your goals. And I hate sometimes to change the goalposts if you're not performing well. But in this sense, it's out of our control of kind of what Google is putting out there in terms of what users are using. It's what we do have control of is putting out appropriate content for our correct audience. And I think AI Overview, actually, the good news of it is that we've seen a really significant drop in patients accessing our site, which is someone who we don't really need to access our site because we are appealing to doctors. And we've had that issue previously where patients are filling out forms on our site and, we don't want to have any of their information, obviously. So AI Overview has actually, we've decreased our clicks and traffic from organic search, but the quality of traffic going to our site, we've actually seen increase quite a bit, which has been pretty significant. And so those zero-click searches, they're good for people searching for thought leadership articles and getting quick answers. But if they didn't click through to our site, then it might not have been the correct audience that we're trying to actually reach.
That's super useful. So at the end of the day, it's about conversions, right? And sales, all they care about is a qualified conversion. And are you still able to, from your point of view, are you still able to track that happy path from organic to an actual? I mean, the beautiful thing about organic search is like those are the most qualified leads.
Right.
That's the hungriest web searcher. But you still have line of sight there? You don't seem too worried about losing visibility.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in terms of actual conversions, we've set up a lot of custom tracking and tag manager that will basically give us a life cycle of someone who's either new or returning to our site and getting a lot of very specific source tracking. So I can't divulge too much information there. But in terms of
Don't. Oh,
organic search,
perfect.
yeah,
I love it. I love people are thinking like that. But yeah, please don't.
you kind of have to, if Google's not releasing these tools for you to use, you have to kind of make up your own path to get the visibility that you need. And so we implemented that about last year, and it's given us a lot of insight into, what leads are coming from organic search, what leads are coming from web referrals, like other content syndication, outside of just using, UTMs and things like that. And we've had really good demo rates from organic search. It's like the best performing still. And
That's
a lot of
awesome.
those are coming from branded, and that's always typical for B2B SaaS
Yeah.
companies. So we don't, we're not going to turn away anyone who searches for our name and then converts. That's always obviously someone who's further down the funnel. But I think the AI overview, going back to my point about the no-click searches, I think historically those searches would have been probably lower quality traffic to our site. And so this whole, freak out about our decoupling of clicks going down, but impressions are going up. I think that's great from a brand authority perspective and helping our site get exposure. But in terms of traffic dropping, I think it's just showing that the traffic actually going to our site now is just a lot higher quality, which is great because our lead volume is great. Everything else has been great.
That is really cool. I think people freak out that AI is eating all search. I mean, it's only 5% of searches still. I mean, like Google still
Mhm.
has 95% of all organic searches. And yes, there's an AI overview, top real estate. Now I have to ask for you, but in the YML space, do your AI overviews happen in the middle of the page like they do in banking, or do they happen at the top of the page?
They happen from my experience at the top of the page.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah, they
different
do most of the
YMYLs
top.
happen for different people. If I ask money advice, it usually goes in the middle for some reason.
Interesting.
I don't know what
Interesting.
Google's doing right now, but that is super interesting. Leona, going back to you. So how are you proofing content for the AI world? Like what is your strategy now in terms of the content you create and what you think about?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually interesting because I think that AI hasn't necessarily like dramatically changed the kind of content that we produce. In a way, it's putting pressure on us to create or go deeper into creating more like high quality content, because actually even thinking about like, the content that the AI driven search engines or even like ChatGPT is looking for, they're looking for the best content, right? To link to, even if we want to show up on a ChatGPT, and we are actually, there's like doctors who are mentioning to us, hey, like this blog post you wrote about value-based payment showed up on, ChatGPT. I was searching for this, and, so I think it's in a way, like I was saying before, like because we're in the healthcare space, trust and clarity have always been paramount for us. High quality content has always been sort of our North Star. I feel like it's really just, it's really just putting pressure on us to do more of that, and marry even more like our brand with our SEO, and find ways obviously to use the AI tools themselves to expand our capacity. So I thought it was going to be more disruptive than it actually is, at least from my side. And it
Well,
hasn't been
because
like,
you were strong fundamentally already. I think that's the people that are winning right now. They were already fundamentally doing all the things in SEO and doing it in a way that told you to do it, and that future-proofed you. I think the ones that were hacking, relying too much on, gosh, I don't know, affiliate sites and referrals. I mean, those are the ones that have suffered in this new world. Because I mean, if organic is back on top in the AI overviews, this is the thing. You mentioned a value-based care article. What a long tail conversation. And who knows what when a doctor sits down in front of ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or Perplexity, whatever tool that, that the doctor prefers, it's not a keyword anymore. We talk about intent. I call them key conversations. And so if you like, I would love to see your content mapping sometime, Leon. I was like, imagine just like, okay, we have EHR, and then there's like all these conversations that you're just picking to choose from that have high intent or what the market really wants to talk about. Like that is what's happening. That is what's happening. And so when I pick an EHR, they're the ones that get the brand mention, the one that are talking about those very specific issues pertinent to that person that's on the keyboard.
yeah, no, it helps so much to have your ear to the ground. Like Kyle was saying, we have clinicians that are practicing and they also work at Elation. And we're just really in touch with our clinician community. So in a way, the content generation process is very user driven, and we're seeing benefit from a SEO standpoint as well. So it's just, yeah, I think in that sense, we have inadvertently future-proofed ourselves just by sticking to our values.
I think it goes to the whole process of creating content too, from Leona's perspective. She works very closely internally with thought leadership. We've been around for 15 years, which has really helps. We've had a lot of content that's been ranking for 12 plus years on our site. And Leona's really instilled a great process in terms of creating content, as opposed to, I think, in the olden days of SEO, where you're trying to get page rank and link juice and things like that. You're just creating content and you throw it on your website and hope to see what happens. Nowadays, with AI Overview, you really have to make sure your technical SEO everything is checked. You have to really think about your audience, and we have a large audience. We have a lot of different specialties that we're trying to reach. So we have to think about what are they wanting to read, and then kind of work backward from there to create the content that they want to search for, kind of give them something to talk about. So
That's super helpful. Could how do you two work together? I mean, Kyle, are you doing more of the technical, like here's the keywords, here's the conversations? Leona, what do you think? I mean, what this is
yeah.
most SEO departments are one woman, one man band, but you all have you have partnership, you have team. That must be really refreshing. Tell us about how that works. What is that synergy like?
Yeah, it's great. So, I mean, I came in 3 years ago to Elation, almost 3 years. And as we mentioned, Leona's been here for 8 plus years. So she was kind of running the show for SEO and creating a bunch of awesome content. And I just came in to obviously manage the website. And we worked really closely together because I definitely had a little bit more of a background from the agency side of SEO and running a lot of websites from different industries. And I think we definitely collaborate really well together, where she has a lot of expertise in terms of what kind of content we should put out there, and drafting all of that. And then I come in and just do preliminary keyword research, make sure everything is set up correctly for the back end and the front end too. And then Leona will obviously create the content briefs, and then we kind of collaborate and come back in at the end. So it's almost like we're there throughout this whole process, but we all take expertise in our certain areas. It's been a good partnership though.
Yeah, I love working with Kyle. I think something that's like great about being in a smaller team, because sometimes when you're in a smaller team, you're like, oh man, I wish I was in this like giant team and I had like, 800 people working on SEO and blah, blah, blah. And I guess now I have my AI intern. So it's not as not as difficult. And obviously we have an agency that we work with as well called Shuroak.
Yeah.
That I would say is part of our team.
Yeah.
But I think the nice thing about being part of a smaller team is, even though obviously Kyle is very focused on the technical aspects, I'm very focused on the content aspects, and it works really well. We both take a lot of ownership over SEO in general. And so Kyle's not afraid to be like, okay, I have this content idea. And, if I see something from a technical standpoint, like I can tell Kyle that. So we have like a very synergistic, I would say, working relationship. And I think that helps a lot, not to silo yourself like too much and be like, I'm just thinking about content. Because if you think about content in a silo, then you're not really thinking about the technical problems in relationship to the content problems, and vice versa. And so I think that's something that has been nice about the way that we've approached SEO as a company, I would say.
Yeah, you don't mind. This is not self promotion for sure by any means, but I would love to know the thought process around. We are you have an expansive organic program, and I can even with two people, it was still you needed more hands. You needed more tech. You need more set of eyes. But do you like when did you make that decision? Like this is time that we need a partner. Can you walk us through that, and then and for everybody else, what's the proper way to manage your agency partner?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of, I don't know, Kyle, you feel free to chime in as well, but we've had a lot of experiences with agencies throughout different moments, I would say, in our development path when it comes to SEO, when it comes to marketing.
You're very
And
mature in that regard. I mean, you
yeah,
right, it was your progress.
definitely. And like we've always put a lot of emphasis into content marketing, into SEO, because it's really at the end of the day a way for us to connect with the right audiences, right? So it's very, as you were mentioning, like the importance of organic, all of that. So it was never like a secondary thing for us. And we always knew that we had to invest a lot of resources there. But I think just from the previous experiences that we've had with other agencies, we're the kind of company, because of the space that we're in, which is healthcare. We know we have a lot of clarity about what we want to say, who we want to target. And so we really wanted to work alongside an agency that was really willing to work alongside us in that sense. You know what I mean? And it's not always easy working with companies who know exactly what they want and have a lot of like, okay, like we can't really say this because, it's not really on, it doesn't really express like, the kind of connection that we want to build with our users. Like sometimes it feels like it can put limits, but I feel like you guys like have really jumped in terms of understanding very deeply like the particularities. And I think that's really why we connected from the start.
That's super helpful.
Yeah, to add to that, I think that from working with different agencies, we knew what we weren't looking for is the biggest thing. And when we found you guys, the very first call with you, Nick, I think you were really asking us questions in terms of like, what is your business? You actually, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you had a little bit of a background in the med tech space in general, and our previous agency that we were with, you just had common frustrations in terms of not really understanding our market very well and our audience. And it's understandable because healthcare is complicated. Like just the terminology itself is complicated. You could use a whole dictionary for medical terms. And I think just that alone, it's a very niche market, and it's a very large market, but you really have to understand your audience and are willing to learn about them more. That definitely you guys were all about. So that was great.
Yeah, you're an agency guy, so you knew what it was supposed to look like. Yeah, the acronyms. I don't know what the difference between an EMR and an EHR is, and to this day,
Read
and
our
like I've been
blog. We have posts on that.
I'll send you some
post on
links.
that. Okay, so look up Elation on ChatGPT. What is the difference?
There you
And
go.
you'll get the brand mentioned there. Absolutely. I don't know how many times I spelled HIPAA with two P's and one A. So that's
It happens.
That still happens.
that's so hard. Hey, y'all are great. Okay, so where can people find you? URLs, LinkedIn. Can you give us all your handles?
Yeah, I actually recently just removed a lot of my social media
Good for
just
you.
for
Smart, healthier.
personal reasons. So, but I am still on LinkedIn, just / Kyle Stevens. So pretty basic. I was one of the original Kyle Stevens. I apparently got that URL. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, you can also find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me personally, but I'm about to send a bunch of traffic to our website because I highly encourage you go to the Elation Health blog, elationhealth.com/blog, and read our content and give us feedback. And hopefully, even if you're not a doctor, you'll learn something there. You'll learn something new. So,
You all write a lot of educate, a lot of, I mean, a lot of top of the funnel stuff. I mean, stuff that's really educational and informational is that's value added to the community. I think that's why you're successful. You're not just always going for the quick transactions. So,
yeah,
Leona, Kyle, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll do this again sometime.
love that.
Yeah, it sounds great. Love to.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.